Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed since last time. Mr. and Mrs. Christ. Karen King, Harvard professor and scholar of early Christianity, announced last month that a fragment of a 4th century Coptic papyrus contains a quotation from Jesus where he refers to his wife. Now, King made it clear in her paper on the subject that this is not enough evidence to now assume that the historical Jesus was married. Rather, it is evidence demonstrating that the Christian attitudes about Jesus' marital status and his celibacy were a lot more diverse 1600 years ago than they are today. Nevertheless, the Vatican published an editorial in its state newspaper a few days after King's announcement of the papyrus, declaring that the papyrus was a fake. Well, okay, personally, I don't see why anyone should give more than a passing fuck whether or not a guy who's been dead for 2,000 years and for whom there is no direct evidence whatsoever was married or not. The only interest this topic really holds for me is in watching how uncomfortable some Christians get whenever something like this crops up and challenges the narrative of their most cherished fairy tale. Man fearing Obama re-election kills family and self. On September 23rd, Albert Peterson returned home from church with his wife and 2 teenage sons, killed them, and then killed himself. He'd had a history of mental illness, and he'd been upset by the recent suicide of a family member. But it seems that his main reason for murder-suiciding his family is that he feared having to live under another term of the Obama presidency. So let this be a lesson to all of you out there who may be considering doing something drastic. Remember, committing suicide over who the president is a permanent solution to a constitutionally term-limited problem. And that's assuming that things are really as bad as you imagine, which they aren't. The Republican October surprise is Jeremiah Wright. Look, it's Barack Obama. And he's talking in a black voice. And he's saying nice things about Jeremiah Wright. And now it's 5 years later, and still nobody gives a fuck. If I wanted to hear a feckless, desperate white guy try to rile people up over Obama and Jeremiah Wright, I'd listen to Sean Hannity's radio show. And if he wasn't talking about Jeremiah Wright, that precise moment when I tuned in, I would just wait 5 fucking seconds. Baraks' blown debate. There have been a lot of sincere, well-meaning people on YouTube and Facebook trying to explain Obama's lackluster performance in his first debate against Mitt Romney last week. They've said things like, well, maybe Obama was just rope-a-doping him. He was just trying to get Romney to punch himself out, lulling him into a false sense of security. Look, I'm an Obama supporter. I love the guy. I voted for him last time. I'm going to vote for him again this time, proudly, but he fucked up. He had a chance in his first debate to close the deal, okay, to put this election out of Romney's reach, and he didn't do it. I know Obama's still ahead in the polls. I know that the Electoral College projections look great for Obama, but it is not too late for him to fuck this up so bad it can't be unfucked, even with an opponent as comically unfit as Mitt Romney. Now, Obama gets 2 more chances to put Romney down for good face to face, and I hope he does it, but he should have done it this time. The conservative hate on for public broadcasting. During that debate last week, Mitt Romney said, hey, I love Big Bird, but he would still end federal funding of public broadcasting. Why? Well, because he wants to cut the deficit. And as any deficit hawk will tell you, it only makes sense to target the federal public broadcasting subsidy because it makes up a whopping 0.01% of the federal budget, or about $1.37 per American per year. Why is ending federal funding for public broadcasting such a dog whistle to so many conservatives? It can't be how much money is spent on it because it's not that expensive, and it can't be its undue influence on our culture because commercial television and radio drives our national conversation to a much greater extent than public broadcasting ever has. So what is it? Because When I think about why I support public radio and television, why I think it's a good thing that it is funded by the federal government, here's what I come up with. Regardless of any specific programs that I may enjoy, and I enjoy many, many of them, Michael Feldman, I bow to you, I think it's a good thing that there's a portion of our airwaves that are set aside so that thoughtful, creative people can tell us the news, or tell us a story, or talk about art and culture, or create music or poetry or films and share those things with an audience without having to worry about placating a sponsor, without having to compromise according to the pressures of the marketplace, without having to worry about appealing to the broadest audience possible. And I can only conclude that those who try to score political points by decrying public broadcasting, and those who award them those points must hold the opposite opinion, that they don't value those things. And that's sad, because the very existence of public broadcasting, established by our government, partially funded by our tax dollars, says something really good about us, about our country, and about our culture. It's something that we should all take pride in, that we should all cherish, regardless of whether we're part of that audience or not. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.